Welcome to the Know. I'm Ashley.
I'm Mica.
You ready to go kill some giant dinosaurs?
Oh, yeah.
Now's the time because Monster Hunter is back with an all-new, newbie-friendly, well, newbie-friendlier game.
Yes, the franchise has been a massive hit in Japan ever since it was introduced on the PlayStation 2 back in 2004, and it sold more than 40 million copies around the world.
That's a lot of copies.
It also has its own store in the Tokyo train station.
But it's been a little bit slower to catch on in the West. We don't have stores in our train station.
Nope.
While the game has its ardent supporters who point to a deep combat system, hundreds of hours of gameplay, all kinds of great stuff, Monster Hunter is also very well known for its notoriously high learning curve and grind-heavy gameplay, which can be intimidating.
Yeah, so will this edition of Monster Hunter World finally hit the sweet spot between hardcore gameplay and accessibility to the outside world?
Just describe yourself as Dark Souls with giant dinosaurs.
And then everybody will flock to your game. Also, according to a lot of reviewers, it's finally managed to pull that perfect sweet hybrid off.
That's awesome.
And some are already calling it the best game of the series.
The game releases tomorrow for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. It's coming out on PC as well, but later this year, and there's not a specific date yet. So, what do the critics say? Well, it scored very respectable 91s on both Metacritic and OpenCritic, which makes it the highest rated Monster Hunter game ever and the first to break into the 90s on Metacritic. If you're wondering, Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate got an 86, and that was back in 2015.
Overall, critics seem to mostly agree that Monster Hunter World keeps what makes the franchise great, while also updating its graphics and streamlining gameplay somewhat to let new players get a handhold into the really crazily notoriously difficult franchise.
Now, if you've never played a Monster Hunter game, it's an action RPG that revolves around a gameplay loop of grinding for materials, crafting weapons and armor, and then using that stuff that you've crafted to slay giant monsters. And then you use those rewards to craft even better gear, and the cycle repeats itself.
And that armor is really cool looking, you guys. It's just so awesome. In the game, you kill monsters either alone or in co-op gameplay as you work to learn a monster's behavior as well as utilize its environment to bring it down. Battles can be long and sometimes very frustrating, but always rewarding when you finally make that big kill. Monster Hunter games also feature an extremely deep combat system with several different kinds of weapons ranging from slow and hard hitting to fast and light, as well as ranged weapons and close up.
You'll also use a variety of different traps and bombs and even, why not monster dung to help get an edge in your fights. A lot of people are comparing the franchise to a single-player MMO in style, which is a pretty fair comparison, although they've added multiplayer functionality to newer games, like they've got the co-op.
Right. And as for the newest installment in Monster Hunter World, you're again headed to a new land in search of giant beasts to kill, and in this case, you're chasing around a colossal elder dragon, so hell yeah!
Who wouldn't want to? So, what's new this time around? Well, the biggest update is probably the graphics. While there have been many iterations of Monster Hunter over the years, many of them on handhelds, so it was definitely time for an upgrade in the visuals department here. And they nailed it.
As instructed, which gave it a 9 put it, Monster Hunter World finally overhauls nearly everything from an artistic standpoint and brings it into the current generation. The main camp of Astera looks stunning and picturesque. Each location, from the lush ancient forest to the desolate rotten vale, differentiates itself from the pack.
And Eurogamer added, this series has never been short of fantastic beasts and wondrous toys with which to slay them. Now it's got playpens that are just as impressive to boot.
Meanwhile, the new game has made it easier to get into Monster Hunter if you're a newcomer.
Which is good, because otherwise franchises look at ever-dwindling player counts.
Yeah. Replacing all the text tutorials of past games is a handler who gives you information as you get deeper and deeper into the game, rather than just letting you loose into the world and saying, go forth, when you have no idea what the fuck you're doing.
And maybe text alerts sometimes.
Very rarely.
As GameSpot noted in its 8 out of 10 review, it can feel a bit like having an annoying younger sibling tagging along and on an otherwise deadly adventures, but her vocal cues and vast knowledge about monster types are helpful when encountering new enemies for the first time.
And tracking monsters has gotten easier too, with the addition of scout flies. Once you pick up traces of a monster, the swarm of lightning bugs begin pointing you towards your target, which will get rid of a lot of pointless roaming around. Oh, and speaking of roaming, another big change is the move to an open map rather than zones that need to be loaded separately, which players famously used as an escape hatch whenever they needed to flee a tough boss battle.
Oh no, where's my escape now? Well, that tactic is now a thing of the past, so everyone's got to learn new stuff. The change does help fulfill the franchise's promise of being an open world game. So there is an upside. There have also been some tweaks to menus and upgrade trees to let you more easily decide which path you want to take.
Eurogamer wrote, the difference between Monster Hunter World and its predecessors can feel profound, though it says a lot about how impenetrable these games once were, when the fact that you no longer have to look up online what key quests you need to complete, it's something worthy of praise.
As for the game's multiplayer, it's been woven in a lot better with the single-player experience this time around. Many reviewers noted there's no longer a distinction between village and guild quests, so you can do any of them either alone or with friends, and you can do that either locally or online.
As IGN said, quality of life improvements have smoothed off a few rough edges, making crafting simpler, armor skills more abundant, and introducing quicker, more efficient looting.
As for what's the same, well, it's still a really grindy game, so just be aware of that going in. Monster Hunter World isn't something you're gonna breeze through in 15 hours. Veterans of the series have sunk hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours into games to get the best gear. Although the consensus is that the main quest here, if you just wanna stick to that and power through it, 40 to 50 hours.
But that's also like saying Persona 5 is a 40-hour game, and here we are, 200 hours in.
Right.
Oh, and also don't expect any new weapons this time around, so you'll again be using the Greatsword, Switch Axe, Charge Blade, Insect Glaive, Gun Lance, Heavy Bowgun, and all of the rest. This game does, however, ditch the big flashy Hunter Arts moves from Monster Hunter Generations.
Now, let's talk about drawbacks, because there are a few there. Some have mentioned it can be a little bit complicated to group up with friends, requiring the swapping of a code, which does feel a little bit antiquated.
Yeah, the combat was also knocked by some. Stevivor gave the game its lowest score of a 7.5 and said that the combat is way less precise than a game like, you heard it, Dark Souls.
But just as impenetrable.
His reviewer wrote, your weapon feels like it has the smallest, thinnest hitbox, while the monster can flail its attacks in large zones and still make contact, and you're left annoyed and dead once more. I can understand why this may be the case, balance comes to mind, but that's no excuse for a clunky control scheme and produces thoroughly unrewarded combat overall.
Meanwhile, lots of reviewers reported that the difficulty level spikes drastically towards the end of the game, leading to a lot of frustrated critics and the kind of thing where eventually you go, this is where I stop and just grind and grind and grind. But again, this is a Monster Hunter game we're talking about. That kind of comes with the territory.
In the end, though, the broad consensus is that Monster Hunter World is a great entry point for new players, but with the same deep combat that will satisfy veterans too. If you've ever wanted to try a Monster Hunter game and you didn't want to have to actually buy a book to learn how to play it, that was a really good time.
Real good.
Yeah.
Game Informer said Monster Hunter World is the best game in the series and a welcoming gateway for newcomers to get in on the tail-chopping, rodeo riding, and titan slaying.
And Eurogamer says that the newest entry sees 13 years of evolution come crashing together with some new influences to create a very exciting breed of beast.
I am absolutely excited that this game is finally hitting retail. People have been spending hundreds and hundreds of hours in the beta, which has been going on for a while. They had a couple of different weekends, so you could check it out if you wanted to get an idea before the game actually released. A bunch of us here getting super into it.
I'm so psyched!
What do you guys think of the reviews for Monster Hunter World? Are you planning to pick it up? Let us know in the comments.
And for all of your gaming and Monster Hunter news, be sure to like this video, and if you're new around here, subscribe to the know, and if you're gonna go hunt monsters, good luck.
Good luck.
As Destructoid put it, which gave it a 9. The main camp of Astero? They replaced all the text tutorials of past. Replacing all the text tutorials of past games is a handler. This comes to mind, but that's no excuse for a clunky control scheme and